Welcome back to the Ponca City Monthly Podcast. I'm your host, Andy, and this week we have a special guest with us. We're doing a series where we bring in some of our different writers and people that contribute to the magazine. And if you've been with the magazine for a while and been reading, then you know our guest today. We have Marlys. And Marlys, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great today. It's a beautiful day out, but it is warm, so it's nice to be inside, out of the heat, and visiting with you.
It is. It is definitely warm outside, and it's a little warm in here. So if we get a little sparkly and shiny, that's what it is. But we have the AC on, so hopefully it'll cool us off.
Yeah, we'll just let our shine come through. That'll
Absolutely. So, Marlys, tell me, how did you first get into writing, and what inspired you to want to be a writer?
I think I must have had really good English teachers from when I was very young, because in elementary school, early elementary school, I already wanted to write and liked to write. I loved reading and still do, and that just led to me wanting to write. I love mysteries most, but poetry, just all kinds of things. And over the years, I've continued to write. It's kind of changed what I've done, but I love fiction, I love nonfiction, I love inspirational writing, and it's been something that I started really early on, and it served me well.
Awesome. So when you were a kid and you were saying that you were interested in writing, did you write like stories as a kid?
I wrote some short stories, but then I moved over to poetry.
Okay.
So I love mysteries and all. Those are my favorites to read. And I wrote some of those early on, but then I found that I really liked writing other things.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how they aren't necessarily the same. Sometimes those are two different things.
Very cool. So when did that progress into, because you taught creative writing for many years. How did you progress into that?
Well, I found myself seeing writing as such a way to release emotion and work through things you were going through. So really my noticing the value in creative writing came from seeing what writing did for me. And even after my graduate work at school, I went to a lot of different workshops and training to do with how you write to relieve tension and pressure. I went to some to do with veterans and PTSD, a lot to do with domestic violence survivors. And then I was able to apply those things to college-age students in their first and second year in the various creative writing classes and help mentor them to be able to use writing as opposed to more destructive things that as they're working through problems. And it was just such a valuable thing. And we would learn together and write. And I would always write along with my classes. If I gave them a prompt, I wrote right then too, because it just made them more open to sharing their work and all.
Yeah. So where did you come up with the ideas for prompts? Did you have a prompt calendar? Like I've seen those. Yeah. Or did you just come up with everything out of your head?
Really, I came up with them out of my head because I could see what they were struggling with.
Okay.
You'd have some students that were excellent students and always had been. You had other students who felt like they weren't, and yet you saw that potential. And then I had a lot of students who, were in poverty levels in their home and food insecurities and a lot of different things like that. And so I would just see what the makeup of the class was and what they, might need to write about. Because then it was up to them if they shared it out.
Yeah.
That wasn't ever something they had to do. But you find those classes, they get to know one another and they share and disclose all kinds of things that maybe they'd never written about or talked about out loud. And so it was just really moving.
Yeah. How do you think that writing for a magazine and doing interviews is different than the creative writing? Because it is different.
Yeah, it is different. But the nice thing about Ponca City Monthly magazine is that Kelsey lets you have your voice. So yes, she expects well-researched and well-written and all of those kinds of things, which I appreciate. And it's a really positive publication, which I've loved writing for. But at the same time, I found that I can write ways that have my own voice in them. And that's really important to me too. So it really has combined creative writing and that journalistic writing together in a way that I just love.
So for July that's coming out, I want to talk about your stories because you wrote some really fun stories.
Thank you.
So let's talk about the archery club.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about what you learned from that and where you went.
Yeah. The archery club in the area, I had no idea.
Sure.
So I love times that I get an assignment and it's like, what? We have that here? And then it was just even far more amazing than what I had realized. The amount of land that is out there, the upkeep that they do to have these challenging courses that even some of the targets even are moving. I mean, and you can do them yourself. They have it set up with strings and pulls where you can be where you need to be to shoot your bow and arrow and pull for the target to move. It just was amazing. And I love, they do a lot of training. They really enjoy things with kids. And I thought, more programs that have kids need to get out there because it's outdoors, it's safe. They will bring in their experienced, at arches. And it was just amazing.
Yeah.
And I love the area. It is also right on a part of a lake close to it. So if you are out there with a group, you can also fish. And and they have a couple of, charcoal grills out there. So you're able to cook. And it had so much more than I realized. And then, there are people who travel around a lot of different places. And so they'll come from a lot of other states and come there to do this course and stuff as well, which I had no idea. So that was just really interesting. But it was one of the areas that I thought, we have a lot of more youth groups or children's groups that could set up a time when he was able to get some experience out there to also help and stuff. And they could see, you don't know until you try something how much you might enjoy it. And it was very interesting.
I liked you were showing, you took some pictures of like their, what they call, I guess, their 3D, which looked like you were shooting, like, I think there was one that looked sort of like a campsite that had been demolished by a grizzly bear. I loved that. I thought that was so fun.
Yeah, I think that might have been my favorite 3D one, was where you have the bears and the campsites all amiss. And I thought there have been some people who went camping and have had that. So, but it is that's such a cool setup. And they really, he's very creative, and they make changes and keep things up and stuff. So it's just the 3D archery part of it was very cool, and the fact that they have a lot of equipment out there. So if you do have a children's or youth group, they don't have to have their own things. They'll have some there that they can help, teach them on and let them experience it and see how they might enjoy it.
Very cool. Yeah. And all the information about contacting them is all in the article.
Yes.
So if you want to get more involved with the archery club, you can definitely reach out to them. Another great article, and it's actually our cover story, is the Project Transformation and the book club. They're teaching reading.
Teaching reading.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that and what you learned from that.
Project Transformation is a program that has went on in other places and other areas, even in Oklahoma in the past, but it's a summer program, and it's an 8-week reading camp type of a deal. Although they have STEM time and craft time and movement time. So they do all kinds of things. But there are 50 kids, elementary age kids, that are selected into the camp. That's the number that we really could host easily here in Ponca City for this. And it just takes masses of volunteers. But you have all of these people that are coming together to help the kids. And children, even really good readers, lose a few months of their reading capability, where they are and stuff through the summer if they don't continue to read. And then we have so many, and I know everywhere does, but Oklahoma has so many readers who are below grade level. And so this is, meant for them to help pull them up to grade level. And then if readers are on target or close to being on target, just so they don't fall backward with their grade level, because reading affects every other subject. You have to read. You have to read in science. You have to read in history. You have to. So if you aren't a good reader, it hurts your academics all the way around. So it's incredibly important, but it's very fun for the kids. So to them, they're like going to camp.
Yeah.
So, and there are a couple of things in the morning. There's like a slot where they have a one-on-one person that reads with them. So everyone has that every day. And then in the afternoon, there's some other working on reading and things like that and all. But they're also going to some museums and different things around here. They went to the library, which, you know, we have so many great things at our library here. They're going to go out to Standing Bear one day. They have a couple of pilots coming in from the Flight Academy to talk about flying.
Nice.
And so they're getting to do all kinds of other things too. So to them, it just feels like going to camp, right? And stuff, which is how we want it to feel. We don't want it to feel like school all through the summer, but it's going to be really good. I'm just really delighted. There are 5 interns that are college students, and they're not local, and they were originally going to be through AmeriCorps, but of course, AmeriCorps lost its funding, but we still were able to keep those same interns and fill that, and the state program helped as well. And so it's really worked out so nicely. It's held at First United Methodist Church, where First Methodist and First Presbyterian churches worship together. Okay. So they're kind of a key part of pulling it together. But the other Methodist churches in town have done a lot of help. A lot of organizations have. First Baptist Church sends over reading volunteers. We just have the hospital has helped us quite a bit with some food sources and some volunteers. The Noon Lions. We just have several organizations and people that are donating different things or donating their time, which was really needed for this.
Yeah.
So it's an exciting event.
That's really cool because, like you mentioned, we are falling behind in the reading, and I think. When I was a kid, remember all the fun reading programs that we had?
Yes.
Like, go to Pizza Hut and read a book.
I love that. My kids loved that even. They were still doing it then. So
yeah. So I think it's just culturally, I don't know what's happened, but I feel like culturally we've just shifted away from reading. And, and I meet so many adults who are like, I've never read a book after I got out of school. And I'm like, when I hear I'm feeling bad that I try to read one book a month.
Right.
And then I feel bad when I don't hit that goal. Mm-hmm. But then I meet people who are like, I haven't read a book in 10 years. Yeah. And it's like, wow, okay.
Yeah. And I believe that, kids need to read. The reading helps in everything, but more than that, helps their imagination.
Yeah.
It helps. You can read, and you keep looking, right? If you're a child or you have a child that doesn't seem to enjoy reading, you have to keep looking. Maybe they haven't found what they want to read yet.
Absolutely.
And that can happen, I know one of my grandsons, it was like, I think he's just never going to like to read. And he wouldn't read, and he's a class clown. So we kept comedy and fiction and going all that. He likes biographies.
Nice.
And then once you gave him those, he's like, read, he was then perfectly happy reading, but he wanted that. It was opposite of what you'd think with his personality. So you just have to keep looking to find the things you love. And I'm like, I love to read. I read all the time. I always have at least one book going, and sometimes a couple if I have a fiction and a nonfiction or something going. But I wish kids, I think, we spend a lot of time on their phones or on visual stimulation, which I get it. I'm a very visual person. Mm-hmm. So I understand how that stimulation keeps people from reading a bit, but I think it's so important, and academically will always be important. So.
Yeah. So I want to talk to you because you are very involved in the Ponca Playhouse. So tell me a little bit about how you got involved with that and what you do with it for them.
Okay. Actually, I have been involved with Ponca Playhouse for over 30 years. And it's back a long time ago, and I did some volunteer things for them, just little things, and then I decided to audition. And I didn't do theater in school or anything. So this was a time my mom and dad moved back here, but they had lived in Texas for a little while. And so they were there. And so I called my mom after auditions and I said, oh, I auditioned for, Ponca Playhouse. And she said, what'd you have to do? And I said, well, I had to do a reading and I had to sing. And she said, you sing?
It's acting.
That's my mother. That's what I said. I can act like I can sing. And since then, I've acted like I can sing. I've acted like I can cook, which you can ask my sweetheart. He will tell you I am not the cook in the house. I've acted like I can do all kinds of things that I don't normally do. But it just is, yeah. So probably about 35 years I've been involved with that. I've been on the board a few times. I'm past president twice, so I was president at 2 different times with that. And then now I'm on the board. My term is about over. I'll be going off the board this summer, but I'm going to stay on with some of the particular things that I'm doing. So, I will stay with marketing and do a lot of their writing, like their pre-show stuff. Kelsey helps us send things out with that too and stuff. So I will still do that writing, and we've done like a collaboration with City Arts to put artwork in the lobby for each show, and I think I'm going to still coordinate that. So there are a few of the things that I had been doing, even though I started them as a board, that I'll keep doing so they can get some of the others busy with other things. But I just, the last show, I was part of the last show, I Hate Hamlet, and that was fun. It's always fun to be on stage. It's that kind of a adrenaline thing, like, nervous, but a good nervous kind of a deal to do that.
Yeah.
And so I love doing that, but I also just believe in the program. I think we need art and theater and music and all of those things to really lead full, rich lives. And so I like being a part of that in Ponca City.
Yeah, and I think that it's really important to, I come from Tulsa, so it's a big city. Much. There's art everywhere. There's theater everywhere, and to come here and to have such a rich community of theatrics and art is really important. And I want people to understand how important that is. Because it does help our community in so many ways. I think that. Like I said, it's just such an important part of having a thriving community. Right. So what are your, because you guys do a lot, and what would you say to people who have never heard of the theater?
Yeah, I would say everyone needs to come to Ponca Playhouse and see what it's like. It's changed over years just because we've had to change locations. So you have to change how you build the set, and you have to change. We started where the city offices are now. We had the Civic Center, and I was here then, and that was beautiful space because you had a lot in the back to build, and you had big wing spans on the sides, and all that. It was beautiful doing theater there, and then it became, then it was going to be part of the renovation and remodel, and also we moved and found smaller places to rehearse and to build sets, and then we for a while rented the Pumpkin just for the shows, but that you can only do that so long with building sets that you can take apart and move, and so both financially and just manpower, it wasn't. And so now we're in more kind of more a what people would call like a black box theater. Our seating can be moved around, so we can be in a circle, we can be in a half circle, any kind of layout the director sees for their sets. It's really, a lot of people were like, I don't know about that, but it's really a cool change. I'm used to being on at the Civic Center or the Pumpkin where everybody's out this way. Yeah. Now they're close, they're right by you, and so but the cool thing about that is your facial expressions matter. Yeah. Your body language matters even more than so they see all those nuances in things the audience does being that close to you. Plus we were able to, when we remodeled, Ruslan Hermanson was also, and she really watched out for all the ADA compliance type things, and we had always had to have our patrons who were in wheelchairs at the back of the theater, and they are right up front now. We have places where we could have chairs sitting there if they aren't needed for wheelchairs. But so that was one of the first things we did after we had the seats built and things along that line, was we called some of those patrons and let them come and wheel their wheelchair right in, so they didn't have to get out, they didn't have to be in the back. They felt pretty special, but we felt pretty special being able to do that for them, because, just when people have been there, with you, with the organization.
Yeah.
But live theater, and, we have our Ponca Playhouse and the Poncan Theater doing live theater, and there's just nothing like it, because it is different every single night, because it's crowd interaction too makes a big difference. And so I hope people will come out if they don't know. We have 5 regular shows during the regular season, sometimes other fundraisers, but we've kept steady seasons even during COVID. We just, we did it where, it was broadcast but live to them, so they could find it on Zoom.
Oh, very cool.
So we kept season memberships, and then when we were able to, people started getting out again and you could open your doors, we still set everyone up where, like, if you came with 3 people, the 4 of you would sit together, but there would be no one else right by you.
Sure.
So we scattered and did all the cleaning that was recommended to keep people safe. And so we didn't close. We didn't close during that. We didn't close during the war. We'll be on our 67th season next season, and we're a continuous theater.
Nice.
Where others have closed during wartime or closed during COVID pandemics or things like that. We continued. It's just kind of the idea that people need creative outlets, and there were so many places that weren't being able to provide that during a pandemic, of course. So we just felt it was important to find a way to do so.
Very cool. Yeah, and so definitely check that out. What would you say to somebody who has never auditioned but has always dreamed of auditioning? Yes. What would your advice? Because, I love theater, but I don't have. I'm not going to remember this conversation.
I understand.
So somebody who's never auditioned, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I think it's important to come on out and audition, and come talk to one of us. I mean, talk to me. I've done all kinds of auditions. I don't get cast every time. It's what the director's looking for.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with if you happen to go and get that practice, see what the roles are. We always try to have something that lists kind of what the roles are, what the director is looking for. But even then, there are times that I thought, okay, I don't really quite fit that, but I really like this show. And I've auditioned and got some things that I hadn't thought I would, and then other things that you don't. But it's the best experience ever. And you'll learn what works for you as far as memorizing the parts. What works for me maybe doesn't work for somebody else. But you could get lots of tips on how to remember and what to do and stuff to help you remember the dialogue. Yeah. And then you're part of this group all working toward the same goal. And some of my very best friends are from the years in theater, and they are people I never would have met. We're not involved in, we are now, but, I probably would have never even met them, and they're some of my dearest friends. So you just can't beat the camaraderie of pulling something like that together, cast, crew, director, everyone, and seeing it come to life on stage.
And I think that's the important part, is that as much as there's to do on stage, there's also a bunch of stuff to do behind the scenes. So if you really want to be involved in theater, you could maybe just run the lights or stand at the door and greet people. There's plenty of jobs that you don't have to remember all those lines. Well, Marlys, thank you so much for joining us today, and we've had such a great time chatting with you, and we look forward to all of your writing.
So thank you so much for having me today, Andy. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.